family, and friends, that was how our letter started. After much consideration and many deep conversations, we've made the decision to amicably divorce. You see, recently, my husband and I found ourselves in the position that so many of us will find ourselves in. After a 14-year relationship and an 11-and-a-half-year marriage, we realized that the fruitful aspects of our marriage had come to an end. The logistics of what would happen next was not what frightened us. Instead, we looked at each other, we looked at the life we'd created, and we thought about how society expected us to interact with one another from this point forward. According to societal expectations, we were now enemies. We now had to enter into a bitter custody battle. Our friends and family would have to choose sides, and that was so antithetical to who we are as individuals. The same evening that we decided that this was the end of our 14-year relationship, we were lucky enough to find a life coach who came over that evening and began working with us through a process that Catherine Woodward Thomas, a licensed marriage and family therapist, calls conscious uncoupling. That evening, our coach came to us and said, let's spend some time honoring your relationship. And so we looked at our relationship and what we had gained from when we were dating, when we were engaged, when we were expectant parents, and since that point, from raising our 5-year-old beautiful little girl. We looked at what we had created, and we decided to challenge the notion that a marriage that is ending is a failed marriage. That's not who we are as individuals. We knew from that point forward that we were going to handle this situation much differently than most people would expect. We waited and we talked to each other, and then we continued with the letter that we gave to our friends and family. We know that one of the difficult things about divorce is that it's not just the two people who are involved, but the community of people that love both of those individuals. With that, our letter went on to say, please don't choose a side. Instead, choose both of us, choose our side. And we know that it can be difficult for friends and family to navigate how to handle when you're friends with both people in the relationship, so we just laid out our expectations. We said, 1, please don't demean us or our relationship. Comments like, I saw this coming, or I never liked him or her anyway, were not going to be tolerated. Number 2, if we were both welcomed in your home prior, we're both welcomed now. You don't have to ask permission. Number 3, if you want to know, ask. In the absence of information, we create stories. The reasons for my husband and I's divorce are very valid, and yet we choose to keep those to ourselves. That being said, creating stories that vilify either one of us will not be tolerated. 4, we'll handle how we're communicating our decision to our daughter. So right away, we set the expectations for our community that we're going to commit to this process of compassion, dignity, and respect because we're intrinsically connected from this point forward. Both from the relationship that we created, the love that we established, all of the beautiful blessings that came to us during the 14 years of our marriage, and because of our beautiful little girl, we are inherently invested in the success of each person moving forward. So the reasons for our divorce actually become invalid at that point, because neither myself nor my husband are a material threat to each other or to our daughter. We're able to look past the reasons that were currently causing us to separate and look at how we can invest meaningfully and contribute in really positive ways in the future of both of us. The letter went on to say, if you would like to support me during this process, these are the things that you can do. It went on to say for him, if you would like to support him during this process, these are the things that you can do. From the time that we made our letter public, we've had so many people reach out to us. How are you doing this? How are you making this possible? I sent your letter to my husband, who I'm having to take to court because he refuses to sign papers. I sent my letter to my wife. It doesn't have to be this way, does it? It doesn't. Texas doesn't allow you to have a common lawyer, but we decided to try anyway. So we went to the same lawyer. I filed because that's the way Texas says it has to be done. Our lawyer asked us in the office, are you sure you two are divorcing? As we high-fived each other over our papers. Because we realize that instead of looking at the ending of this relationship, and so many will end, that we can instead conscientiously choose to celebrate all that we've created during that time. Why is it that as a society, we decide to measure love with anything that's not until death do us part as a failed marriage? Instead, choosing to look at it and say, this was a beautiful moment of our life. These are the things that we created. We choose to honor each other through this process. We're going to operate this divorce from a higher realm and show the world that there is another way. Because it's time that we stop diminishing love. It's time that we look at love in all relationships and value them for what they've brought to our lives. Thank you.